Hear what?
Listen. With your mouth open like this.
Excuse me?
Their horns are watching over us.
I'm sorry, who's watching us?
God's little angels. Who else?
Look out for Charlie.
I'm gonna bring the whole fucking diseased, corrupt temple down on your head.
I had to take a break for a while for personal reasons, but I'm back for now. And I want to talk about a few things here. First off, I want to go over the fact that I am done dealing with retards. If you are behind or you can't keep up, I'm not going to spoon feed you and get you up to speed. So fuck off with that. Going forward, let's talk about an incident that happened in Waco, Texas, some years ago. The guy that looked like this. Now they are coming out and talking about what happened. I had this figured out a long, long time ago, but people are talking about it now and they're mentioning certain things. I want to go over this. It's not what they say it is, but they're on the right track. I'll just say that. They knew that voice of God weapons were being used on these people that were in this church. I'm not going to call it a cult. You're going to hear anti-cult, that word, a lot in this. Anti-cult or anti-cultism means anti-solidarity. They want to keep people from getting together. That's all that means. Now, if Koresh believed he was talking to God, it's because he was being forced to talk to God. And they're going to mention Russians in this. I'll go over that when the time comes. And they mention a few other things. I'm going to stop and talk about it. But they are finally talking about this. Let's get into it.
Igor Viktorovich Smirnov was a Russian scientist best known for his role in Soviet-era mind control research and the poorly explored field of human behavior study he called psychoecology. His maternal grandfather...
See the WAV file in that? Let's go back to that for a second. See that? They're going to get into what that actually is.
His maternal grandfather, Smirnov Ornaldo, was a renowned hypnotist. Igor Smirnov was the son of a high-ranking Soviet officer, Viktor Abakumov, head of SMERSH from 1943 to 1946, and Minister of State Security, MGB, from 1946 to 1951, under Joseph Stalin. At one time, Smirnov's father initiated an Operation North on mass relocation of supporters of Jehovah's Witnesses organization, as well as representatives of other religious associations and their families to Siberia. Despite his scientific activity, Igor Smirnov, just like his father, had anti-cult views, as he wrote in his book Psychoecology.
Now, anti-cult, anti-cultism, again, all that means is anti-solidarity. People getting together, that you want to break that up. And they're doing that in America. It's not just Russians. We have been penetrated by that ideology for 100 years now.
Thus, in describing various religious groups, he solely used anti-cultist language and the label sect. He also adhered to the same pseudoscientific theory about the use of brainwashing techniques by leaders of new religious movements.
See, they believe that everybody from a religious movement is brainwashing the people. Thus, those people need to be brainwashed and corrected back into society. That's how they think.
Which was actively promoted by Steve Hassan and Rick Ross. This was at a time when Smirnov was personally...
Says, in that case, I would like to hear the truth to the extent that the secrecy of the topic allows about psychotronic weapons. They can be divided into passive and active types. The first includes methods of extracting information from a person's brain against their will. The second involves methods of influencing the brain to implant certain thoughts.
Involved in the development of such technologies. Most of Igor Smirnov's research focused on remote influence on another person's consciousness and programming one's psyche and behavior.
Now, how do you do that? And it's exactly what I've been telling you for the past however many years, 12 years or whatever.
Application of psychotronic weapons developed by Smirnov included the potential to affect large groups of people for various purposes.
Okay, large groups of people. Let's talk about that real quick. They mentioned mass manipulation, basically. Mass manipulation. How do you think that's going to be done? by embedding this sound into everything. That's the only way to do it. If you're going to mass manipulate people, you have to embed the sound into everything. And that's exactly what I've been talking about on this channel forever as well.
For example, to incite mass aggression in a crowd, or, conversely, to calm public unrest. The majority of the experiments he conducted remain classified to this day. Smirnov wrote, "Psychotechnologies are the culmination of everything humanity has engaged in thus far. They are much more serious than the atomic bomb and space flights."
This is how stupid people are. They're much more important than the atomic bomb. That's what they're saying. But yet, these people out there, they want you to debate on whether these weapons even exist or not, to this day, like retards. When you see that, it's bullshit. When you see somebody asking, does it exist? Is this real? You know, fuck off with that. Voice of God weapons, are they real? We've known they've been real for decades, man. Come on.
Right now, we have only created a stone axe.
Okay, they've only created a stone axe, right? That was, what, 1993? When he said that, or before, that was like 30 some years ago. They are far beyond what people believe. And you know what? They're just retards, and they're going to find out. They're going to find out when their kids flip out, or they're going to find out when their neighbor flips out, or they're going to find out when they flip out. One way or another, they're going to find out.
Although using it, we can already perform surgical operations. We have obtained instrumental ways to access the subconsciousness and correct certain areas. Everything else is just specific applications. Smirnov also worked on uncovering hidden information in the subconscious, representing the true motivations behind a person's actions and intentions. He developed a method for identifying individuals potentially inclined to commit acts of terrorism.
And the Americans were doing this too. Make no mistake of that the Americans have been doing this and have been pretending to be behind on it, when in a lot of ways they were way further ahead.
The question remains whether the goal of this development was to prevent terrorist acts, or to find individuals who could easily be turned into new terrorists.
That's exactly what it was. They find these people and they make it worse, and you're going to find out when they talk about what happened in Waco.
Regardless, this method formed the basis of security systems designed for airports to identify terrorists before they attack.
And that's what I've been talking about in the past with the Commando criminal stuff. Look up that video. All of that.
Today, this technology is used in various countries, including the United States.
It measures your walking gait, your blood pressure, your brain waves, everything. Everything is being monitored. Your subvocal speech can be monitored wirelessly. Totally wirelessly. Now, in Waco, here's where they're going to get it wrong. It's not the Russians. The U.S. has had this tech operational, very operational, since the early 60s, right? Could they bring in a Russian to make them believe that they are behind on it? Or believe that they're doing something noble? Sure. But we had it and have it. Make no mistake about that. So this is where it kind of gets a little off. But it gives you an insight into what is going on here.
Apologists have been brought in from Moscow to demonstrate the technique for analyzing the human mind and then influencing it. The concept is that with an understanding of an individual's mind, keywords transmitted in music or white noise will force that.
Now look at that. They have different scripts, right? So you have danger, death, life, secure means security, ego, alien, death, disease,
FBI
ethics,
the system to
home,
use David Koresh at
love, money,
Waco,
music,
Texas.
religion. That's exactly what people are hit with today. The same exact scripts, same exact thing, you know, all negative influence on you. And when you pull these out, and they have been pulled out, I've pulled them out on this channel, you can watch it, it is the same thing. Now, let's go back and listen to how they talked about transmitting it right before that.
The concept is that with an understanding of an individual's mind, keywords transmitted in music or white noise.
Keywords transmitted in music or white noise. That is exactly what they're doing now, everywhere. Wake up.
Thus, the FBI Counterterrorism Center experts secretly met with Smirnov in the United States. He proposed a plan. During negotiations, they should transmit messages from relatives of the Davidians, encrypted in a certain way that would bypass critical perception and be instilled directly into the subconsciousness of recipients.
Now that's exactly what I've been talking about this whole time. The exact same thing. It's like an encrypted message, but it isn't. So when you get these idiots that come here and try to say shit, they just don't get it, man.
Compelling them to follow these commands. In this case, the commands would be to leave the building and return to their families.
But they didn't really want that. So there was a subversive side giving the wrong messages to stay.
For the leader of the Davidians, David Koresh, a special voice was planned to be used, allegedly the voice of God.
There you go.
That would be played by an actor and urge Koresh to surrender voluntarily.
Now, was this used on Vernon Howell, a.k.a. David Koresh? Absolutely. But it wasn't just used when the ATF and the FBI were outside of their home. It was used throughout key moments of Vernon Howell's life, in the 80s. So, totally bigger than what they project this as.
However, when agents asked what would happen if the subliminal signals did not work as intended, Smirnov replied that Koresh's followers might slit each other's throats, committing acts of fatal violence. According to the official version, the FBI declined Igor Smirnov's services after this kind of response. But that's the official version. Now, let's piece together the facts. Fact 1. At one of the press conferences, an FBI representative publicly stated that during negotiations with David Koresh, the leader of the Davidians, an agreement was reached that the people would peacefully leave the building. However, Koresh suddenly changed his mind, claiming he heard the voice of God telling him to stay and wait.
There you go. So it was used subversively to get him to stay so that they could burn the place down. That's what's going on here. They were telling him to stay and write that it was God. And he had heard this before in the 80s. Same type of thing, the same voice telling him the same types of things. All about the 7 seals, right? So this was an op for a long time, manipulating this guy. Specifically, this guy.
Steve, I want him to come out.
In fact, you could go so far as to say that everything he did in his life from then on, probably the 80s on, was based on what he was hearing from, quote-unquote, God, right? Just like Terry Davis.
I understand.
When does he plan to come out?
He said his God says that he is to wait.
How long? How long is he?
Look.
He says that he did not fulfill his promise to leave immediately with his followers because God told him to wait.
Do you people believe that Koresh is actually talking to God?
That was a planted comment so that they could laugh in the background and then say exactly what they said. This is like childhood Jedi mind trick stuff. Low IQ bullshit. If you buy this, you're a fucking moron.
Koresh believes he's talking to God.
This fact, strangely, aligns with one of the steps in Smirnov's proposed plan.
They're so low IQ.
Except that the effect of the supposed voice of God was exactly opposite to the declared result. Fact 2.
Yeah, they set him up. The thing was to set them up to stay so that they could fucking murder them. Period.
Smirnov used manipulative techniques to influence human behavior by inserting hidden messages.
Again, it wasn't Russians. We've had this technology since Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys was nailed with it back in the late 60s, early 70s.
These commanding messages were recorded on tape and technically altered to conceal their presence from conscious awareness. By bypassing critical analysis in one's consciousness, those commands were directly implanted into subconsciousness, urging a person to carry them out, believing it to be their own conscious decision. To an untrained ear, such technically processed...
To an untrained ear. That's exactly what I've been talking about on this channel for a long time. Because these people come here with these untrained ears and try to comment like they've got a hot take on it. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They show up, they go, I can't hear what you're doing. Well, maybe you should fucking get the shit out of your ears and focus. These are retards. that think they know what's up, that think they are much smarter than they actually are.
Recordings of hidden commands sounded like the squeal of pigs.
There you go. It sounded like the squeal of pigs when you heard the raw signal. Now, when you hear it, it's different. You know, it sounds like whistling. It sounds totally different because it's changed. The technique has changed. And I showed you that in the Rajmoon Singhi video. This is what the unprocessed sound sounds like now. This is from the Rajmoon Singhi case. You hear that? So before you get down into it and get into the signal, it sounds like whistling instead of pigs or rabbits, you know? So let's get back to the video.
To an untrained ear, such technically processed recordings of hidden commands sounded like the squeal of pigs. Now let's return to the Waco siege. As already mentioned, the FBI used psychological pressure techniques on the besieged Davidians, one of which involved loud, irritating sounds. Official FBI reports and eyewitness testimonies state that among the sounds broadcast through loudspeakers were the sounds of animals being slaughtered, including the screams of rabbits being killed.
There you go.
This inadvertently brings to mind the sounds of pig squeals.
They were hiding a lot of what they were doing within those sounds, so that the cameras and the news cameras and all that shit couldn't pick it up.
Used in Smirnov's mind control experiments.
Sound tapes of rabbits being slaughtered, or Nancy Sinatra singing songs, and then they would bring out lights at night, and not that Nancy Sinatra always was that bad, but the ones that she had kept. The point was this: they were trying to have sleep disturbance, and they were trying to take somebody that they viewed to be unstable to start with,
and make them more
unstable. And then they were
unstable.
trying to drive him crazy, and then they get mad because he does something that they think is irrational.
I don't know if you can hear the noise on this tape, but that's some of the noise being made.
Yeah, it sounds like
a
pipe organ, like the really high notes of a pipe organ. You can absolutely hide it in that. There you go. And they were also using technology where they knew where everybody was at all times, which was basically like Wi-Fi radar on the place, right? They knew where everybody was at in the building at all times. They knew what was going on, and they knew what they were saying. The place was totally bugged. The place was totally hit, and the place was totally being attacked. And then you have the shit coming in on the electrical grid as well, the signals themselves, right? And just in the air. That's fucked up.
This raises a question. Why would the FBI use such strange sounds for a psychological attack on the Davidians? However, these actions gain...
You know, that's the problem. I don't care if people want to get in a building and read about the Seven Seals, you know, and collect guns. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit if people want to, you know, gather in a commune house in a college town and cut their genitals off. I don't give a shit. Just leave my family out of it, right? Do whatever you want. But this anti-cultism is anti-solidarity. You know, that's what it's all about.
An utterly logical explanation when combined with Smirnov's plan and the deprogramming methods used by anti-cultists against the besieged.
The law enforcement officials present at the Waco siege could have also been affected by those sounds. Moreover, Timothy McVeigh, the perpetrator of the Oklahoma City bombing, visited the site in 1993 to express his support.
Right, but they had their own program for Timothy McVeigh, right? And that's where they get mixed up. They're like, do you think that Timothy McVeigh could have picked up the sounds there? Absolutely not. He was already being manipulated. That's probably why he was there in the first place. That's probably why he was driven to go there, was because he was manipulated in the first place.
The man later bombed the FBI and ATF building to avenge Waco. Did he hear the sounds that echoed throughout the area? The likelihood is very high.
I'll say this. I highly doubt that Timothy McVeigh was a lone actor at all. I know that he wasn't. But secondly, there is big debate on whether that was actually Timothy McVeigh or whether he was, a stooge, a patsy.
Was he a victim of anti-cult programming? He definitely was. We cannot assert that Smirnov's psychotechnologies alone influenced him.
They almost got it, right? But it's not like some Russian influence in America. Come on. They have had this technology for decades.
Multiple layers of embedded directives played a role in this case. Those directives were part of other waves of informational programming launched by different branches of global anti-cultism. In reality, the psychotechnologies used by Smirnov were merely a stone axe, as he himself put it. Far more effective and sophisticated are the hidden manipulative
But he said it was a stone axe which they could already do surgical operations with. Right? That's important to remember.
Techniques employed by anti-cultists, including puzzle programming, where information codes are embedded in the words themselves and do not require any special technical means. To an average person, such words, phrases, and their combinations, or the frequency of repetitions may seem unremarkable and draw no attention, but for those who understand the principles behind their arrangement, they are like precise mathematical formulas. Using those formulas, one can assemble specific people at a particular time and place to perform a specific action.
Think about that. You have all these people talking about mobbing and all this, all that kind of shit. And then, they're saying basically we can gather these people to one place at one time, right? So this person could be one of the many people that are drawn to this one place at one time, the park, for example. And then they believe that all these people have followed them to the park when they were all drawn to the park. You get it? I mean, it is so far more advanced than what people realize now.
And the likelihood that those formulas will work is close to 100%. In the same way, methods of psychological manipulation were being refined for an external invisible force to subjugate a person's will and to enslave them. Using these manipulative technologies, representatives of the anti-cult movement turn ordinary people into biorobots who become remotely controlled weapons aimed at targets the anti-cultists designate.
So let's go over that again. Anti-cult or anti-cultism, it only means anti-solidarity, people getting together. They don't want that. The proof is that it couldn't be more apparent than it is today, where people do not gather at all. Everybody is alone. And Koresh and all these people were being attacked with this, admittedly being attacked with this, back in 1993. And Koresh had been attacked with this weapon all his life, since he was, I think, a late teenager when they told him, God told him to really understand and get into the 7 seals and started explaining things to him. And then his voice came back to him in the building while the shit was going down and told him to stay. All of this, even mentioning mass manipulation, it is because this signal is everywhere now. It's everywhere, and you can hear it everywhere, just like the Raj Moonsinghi case. Let me show you that if you haven't seen it, where I broke it down and analyzed the audio and show you that it actually was talking to him when people didn't believe that anyone was actually there. There was a voice talking to him. So while Raj Moonsinghi is outside of his house with a gun, this voice here, one of them says, "I know the law as long as you wanted it." Right? I will link to the whole video below. I know the law. I know the law. I know the law. Here's the law. Now, this is where Raj calls them stupid, and it makes perfect sense when you hear it. He's going to say here, "I know the law as long as you wanted it." Listen. I know the law. As long as you wanted it. Now that's the signal. When Raj is hearing it, it sounds much more like a person, right? And he says they're fucking stupid. Let's listen to it as a full thing, and then listen to him answer.
Are you sure?
Oh
my God, you're fucking stupid.
You're fucking stupid.
And that's why the moon singing case is so important, because this was caught on audio and video. And we have this as it went down to break down and compare and show you exactly how this works, how it worked with David Koresh, how it worked for the whole Waco, all the people that were in Waco that were admittedly being attacked with these weapons. And that's it for now. Look out for Charlie.